One man, one Murloc, one giant angry badger. This is Blue Please. It begins now. You're listening to Blue Please here on WoW Radio with myself, Total Biscuit. Welcome to the show, and what a show we have for you today. As per always, topics out of the wazoo, whatever that might be. Coming up later in the show, we have Vash died again, which was an interesting state of affairs. We have a full statement from the Guild Master of the Guild Method, who killed her last night, I believe. Or was it the night before? Can't recall. But yeah, that's the second world first, or the world first second. What the hell am I talking about? More information on that and the ensuing drama a little bit later on in the show. However, we also have the one and only...
Second Wind!
Yes, cleaning up from last week. The topic that I gave you last week was... Can anybody remember? That's the good question. I will tell you in just one moment. Also coming up later in the show, Nupcake News. A follow-up to We Heart Kungan, which apparently turned out to be just a little bit popular, and by just a little bit popular I mean, oh my god, our server is dying from the influx of people. Yeah, that seemed to go pretty well. So I've got a little bit of a follow-up for you coming up in Nupcake News a little bit later on the show, and also the one and only rap in the forums, and again, I must apologise, as the Murloc is conspicuous by its absence, but we will sort it out. We'll get a whole batch of stuff out for you later. Right, okay, let's get on with the show at any rate. Second win from last week. We were dealing with the idea of priest racials. Well, specifically, why the hell do priests get them and nobody else does? And we asked you, why do you think that is, and what kind of racials would you come up with for your race-class combination? Let's see what everyone sent me through my email box. Anyone that wants to email me, themurloc@gmail.com is the place to email anything about this show and also second wind topics, all that good stuff. Send it my way. Right, coming up, what do we got? One from Will here. Came up with a racial for a warlock, specifically an orc warlock, and he calls the racial No Retreat. The condition is usable when the orc warlock is under 50% health. In effect, a 3-second fear. Ignores, is immune, unbreakable. Think death coil without the damage. So basically, it's an unbreakable, uncounterable fear with no damage. So in other words, warlocks get yet another terror effect or horror effect. As we all know, Death Coil is a horror effect. Yeah, that's... Well, let me put it this way. It's first bus to Wine Street. People are going to hate you for that one. Absolutely hate you. Which could be funny, to be fair. Now, Will Francis comes up with this one. As a gnome, I would like a racial which actually worked. Good point. Escape Artist at the moment does not work properly on crippling poisons. Let's face it, when has Escape Artist ever worked on anything? Only one of the worst abilities ever created. Absolutely disgraceful. Even worse than Berserking used to be back in the day, where it would only trigger off a crit. Here, you can have Berserking, which makes you even weaker than the fact that you're Troll Mage and you can be crit, twice before you die a horrible grisly death. Ugh. To be fair, there were a limited number of uses for that particular racial. Yeah. Alright, what else we got? Here we go. Second wind coming up for Mage racials. Matthew Cosgum, also known as Contra, came up with racials for every mage in the game. So let's see what it came up with. Here we go. So these are, just to recap, class-specific racials, just like priests have got. We asked you to come up with ones for your class and race combination. He came up with ones for mages. And he says, Human Mage, the legacy of Khadgar. Your spell critical strikes grant to you a +1% bonus to spell hit and a +1% bonus to spell crit against that target for 15 seconds. Subsequent critical strikes will refresh the duration, stacks up to 3 times. This ability has a 1-minute duration and a 10-minute cooldown. No Mage, hyperactive magic. The kind of magic you have when you've eaten 3 bags of Haribo and drank an entire bottle of Red Bull. Hyperactive magic. Your spell haste rating is increased by 320 for 10 seconds. In addition, spell cooldowns less than or equal to 30 seconds have their duration halved for the duration of this effect. 10-minute cooldown. Note that the global cooldown would still apply. Draenei Mage, the power of Argus. The effects of magical buffs on you are doubled. Elixirs, potions, temporary weapon chance, auras and temporary buffs, activatable trinket effects, for example, are unaffected. Lasts for 20 seconds, 5-minute cooldown. Inspiring Presence is the only exception to auras. And Undead Mage, Cryptic Wisdom. The amount of intellect per 1% crit is decreased by 4. Passive. This ability is earned at level 30. I have no idea how this would scale per level, as I'm not entirely sure how much int equals 1% crit depending on the level. Yeah, that's nuts. That's quite nice, but still nuts. Although I would go for it. I think that'll be kind of the thing you'd expect no mage to go for, but then again, since they already have increased intellect anyway, I can't see that being too viable. Troll mages get supposedly big mojo. While under the effect of berserking, your spell critical strikes increase your spell haste rating by 80. Stacks up to 5 times. So, a class-specific racial that interfaces with an actual racial. Reasonable idea. And of course, Blood Elf Mage. Combustive Magic. Your counterspell ability has a 2% chance to cause the mana of the target's currently casting spell to explode, draining the mana cost of the spell from the target and dealing damage equal to half the magic drained. This ability is passive and earned at level 30. Not too shabby. Has to be said that the vast majority of priest racials are in fact active, and passives are specifically more imber. Very much so. Something that you don't have to worry about. The generic buff is significantly more imber than activatable. And as useful as stuff like Fear Ward may be, again, it's still activatable and only useful in certain circumstances. Stuff like, say, that cryptic magic idea, a generic increase specifically to the amount of intellect required to get crit, is not so sure about that. It's not a massive buff, but a passive is still a passive. Not so keen on that, but I'll have to see. Right, what else have we got? Troll Mage. This comes from Monrad Kiabo, if I pronounce his name correctly. Troll Mages. A class-specific racial for Troll Mage could be a Voodoo Flask. It is a conjurable item that lasts for 2 minutes with a 6-minute cooldown. The mage can only use it himself and can only have one in his inventory at any time, and it has 3 ranks. At rank 1, at level 35, it gives you 40 spell damage for 2 minutes with a 6-minute cooldown. Rank 2, at level 55, gives you 8 spell damage for 2 minutes and 250 spell damage at rank 3. That's insane. I'm sorry, but that's nuts. I mean, Jesus. There would be no reason to play anything other than a Troll Mage if that were the case, because if you look at that, 250 spell damage for 2 minutes and a 6-minute cooldown. Okay, so you're looking at 2 minutes and then 6 minutes to wait. So you're looking at 25% of 250, and that's the effective extra raid damage you get. That is just crazy good, though. Really crazy good. Oh well. Undead Mage, she says, Will of the Dead, rank 1, puts a curse on the target for 1 minute. It does 40 damage every 3 seconds and 5-minute cooldown. So it's a dot, in other words. Mages don't really go for dots, but then again, let's go on there. Rank 2, level 70, puts a curse on the target for 1 minute, does 200 damage every 3 seconds and 5 minutes cooldown. That's just insane. I'm sorry, but that is just nuts. Just give an example of just how easy it would be to make class-specific racials completely and totally imbalanced. As creative as they may be, they're also insanely overpowered. Which, to be honest, is one of the arguable reasons why Blizzard may have not integrated them in the first place. They put the priest racials in, maybe thinking, okay, we could put these in and add ones later, and then realise, oh dear, as soon as we change everything, everyone complains about balance issues. So, let's not change anything at all, let's just leave them there. If we took them away, people would complain, and let's face it, we don't want any less priests in the game, for the love of God and all that is holy. See what I did there? Anyway, yeah, so, not a good idea. Not a good idea at all. It would seem to me that adding the actual racial abilities would give a specific amount of diversity. And as I said last show, I am not keen on the homogenization of classes and races and factions at this point in time. The fact that everybody seems to be becoming this blob, if anything. Horrible, horrible blob of things. They are exactly the same as their peers. And it's all gear dependent. And let's face it, it's been gear dependent since day one, but it would be nice to have some actual effect of picking races, for the love of God. It's not really too much to ask, but I do believe Blizzard are a little bit scared as regards to what's been going on with balancing in general, and what's been going on with the community as regards to balancing, and the fact that balancing is one of the biggest community hot buttons that always keeps resurfacing. Right, we've got a few more emails coming in, and he says, I think it's this way. This is from Jamie Sperry, also known as Corrupt. I think it's in it is, in a way, a little bit too late for Blizzard to introduce radical racial differences, as it would affect people's roles in raids and force them to fulfill a particular role. For example, if human priests were best suited to healing, then all the guilds would want exclusively human priests in terms of healing priests, and a few people would take a human shadow priest. But then again, could this be something for the new expansion? Yes, I am assuming that a new expansion will be announced at BlizzCon. Maybe this will go hand in hand with hero classes. Let us say for a second, you could begin with a hero class from level 60 or so. If you had a hero class exclusive to each race, it would only make more of a difference between the Alliance and the Horde, but it would give you many more options. Say, 1 or 2 generic paths for each class and a race-specific path. Yeah, I would to some degree agree with that. The thing about racials right now is that racials really aren't about who's the better healer or who's the better DPSer. If you look at priest racial specifically, if you look at stuff like Desperate Prayer does not make a human priest a better healer. Yeah, it's a ZOMG, it's a panic button effectively. Doesn't make them a godlike extra healer, and you don't go and min-max your raid on the basis of that. Dwarf priests, yes, they get Fear Ward, that makes them exceedingly useful in raids. Draenei priests now the same. But that doesn't mean that all you will take is dwarf priests, because they are not in any way better healers than any other priest class, race-wise anyway. And let's not even talk about Starshards, shall we?
Starshards makes DPSing priests really good.
Starshards. God. The result of Blizzard taking too many mushrooms. Oh well, never mind. Let's continue, see what other emails we've got today. This is from... oh god, that is a long one, let's go with that. This is from Jordan Davis, also known as Afterburn. He's a level 70 human paladin on Vecnilash US from the Guild Veritas, and he says this: as I am late posting and sending this to you, I'm going to go ahead and give my opinions on the second wind you already declared for this week a few days ago. My opinions and ideas for class racial abilities. My opinion. Personally, myself, I wouldn't like to see race class racials on each of the different classes for each different races. Just mainly because it's one of the factors that makes the priest class unique in itself. I just guess it adds a little bit of diversity to raids as regards to usefulness goes. If someone is playing a dwarf, night elf, troll, or priest in your group or raid, I'm going to go ahead and throw it out there that Fear Ward is more than likely the most useful priest racial in the PvE experience. To be honest, I don't think anyone's going to argue that at all. It's always been the way that Fear Ward has been a godlike thing, and people back to the days of Magmadar being difficult have been saying, well, Alliance have got the advantage. Well, it is sometimes the case. At least it was back in the day, until it became a little bit less useful. But anyway. And it says, yeah, so it's the most useful priest racial in PvE. We already know that, whether it be raid or not. Casting the spell on a tank in a fight that fears, such as Nefarian, even though that's Blackwell Lair, no one goes there anymore, is really friggin' useful. The tank doesn't lose primary aggro, and after the fear's gone, everyone can resume their positions in the raid as if nothing happened and do their thing. Now, after that said, everyone knows that Fear Ward is only available to Draenei and Dwarves, and those are 2 races on the Alliance side. But if you take a closer look at the Alliance priest racials, they're more befitted to PvE purposes, while the Horde priests are more built around the sake of PvP. Let's take a look at their racial abilities. No, these are ripped off of WoW Wiki, and they're rank 1. Human, Desperate Prayer, instantly heals the caster for 10-minute cooldown. Okay, so that's an instant heal on yourself. Feedback. The priest becomes surrounded with anti-magic energy. Any successful spell cast against the priest will burn 18 of the attacker's mana, causing 1 shadow damage for each point of mana burn. Lasts 15 seconds. That's interesting, because that's not really PvE at all. Desperate Prayer and Feedback, if anything, are PvP abilities. A instant heal is not all that imaginatively useful in a PvE encounter. If that was happening on anyone else, like a mini lay on hands, then cool, but it's a self thing. It's useful for PvP. Anyway, let's continue. Dwarfs also get Desperate Prayer, and they get Fear Ward. Now, Fear Ward, yeah, godlike PvE racial ability, no two ways about that. Draenei gets Symbol of Hope. Greatly increases the morale of the party members, gives them 99 mana based on the level of the casting priest every 5 seconds for 15 seconds. Up to 99 mana every 5 seconds, indeed, for 15 seconds. That's really quite nice. Again, that is definitely a PvE ability in Fear Ward. So Draenei pretty much sitting up there as the, right now, ultimate PvE priest. So it continues. Night Elves get Starshards. Well, we all know what joke that is. Starshards is a channeled arcane damage spell. It's terrible. And they also get Elune's Grace. Reduced range damage taken by 21 and increases chance to dodge by 10% for 15 seconds. Again, that's another PvP ability. There is only actually right there one pure PvE priest healing class, and that's Draenei. And that is quite interesting. Now, Blood Elf, specifically, is quite interesting to look at as well, because they get Touch of Weakness, the caster's next damaging melee attack, blah blah. Yeah, we know that that's not all that useful. But Consume Magic dispels one beneficial magic effect from the caster and gives them a certain amount of mana. It's on a 2-minute cooldown. Now, either that's a panic button for PvP, or that's actually a somewhat kinda useful PvE ability. Certainly a possibility. Trolls get Hex of Weakness, weakens the target enemy, reduces damage caused by 2, and reduces the effectiveness of healing spells by 20% for 2 minutes. That is, yeah, mildly useful. And again, Shadow Guard is a PvP ability. So, it's interesting to see there isn't actually the kind of divide that you would think. Back in the day, it used to be a case of, well, Alliance for the PvE, Horde of the PvP. This is the reason Shamans, Paladins. Now it's less so. And to be fair, if you actually look at the racials, they are very much a mixed bag, and they don't appear to be actually aimed at anything specifically, which is in itself rather intriguing. You're listening to Blue Please here on WoW Radio with myself, Total Biscuit. Right, here's a little bit of No Cake news for you. This is a follow-up to We Heart Kungan. I call it No Kungan No. Enjoy.
Knob cake news.
Stop that. Welcome to this week's edition of Nubcake News. Coming up later in the program, Blizzard announces it will solve faction imbalance by converting everyone's characters into dwarf females. It is reported that Terpster cried tears of joy at this announcement. But first, controversy has erupted over the recent death of Lady Varsh by raiding guild and part-time marching band Method, with some players claiming, that was a bit mean, what did she ever do to you? We were able to recover black box footage of her final moments, which we will now play for you. We must warn you that this footage is graphic and may frighten younger children and sissies.
Let's go! It's too dangerous to go alone. Here, take this. A vial of highly corrosive and hilarious acid. What am I supposed to do with this? Throw it at the bitch. Okay, here goes. Ah, my eyes. This ball bat's doing nothing.
WTF, Vash is a dude? Dude, this is wild. What the hell did you think she was? However, not all is kittens and roses and vials of hilarious acid here in World of Raidcraft, and some have called into question the legitimacy of Nihilum's World First. In an effort to resolve the situation, guild leaders from some of the top raiding guilds in Azeroth have called a conference in which they have decided to sit down and set down firm and solid rules as to what is a World First and what is not.
Order, I call to order this meeting. Guildmaster Kungan, would you please open these proceedings with your statement?
Kungan smash all others are weaklings!
Very poignant, thank you. Now, I must bring to attention the fact that the peasants are revolting. Yes, I know, they're disgusting. Look at them in their greens. Greens was so last expansion. No, I mean they're up in arms over world firsts. They seem to be confused as to what is a world first and what isn't. Well, that's understandable. These days it's not as simple as just killing a boss anymore. There are various other factors to consider. Indeed. So, we must, for their benefit, since their opinion is the definitive reason as to why we raid in the first place, we must set down firm and solid rules for world first kills. Sco of Method, if you please. Thank you. Yes, if we believe that a world first kill must involve killing the boss first in the world before everyone else. Yes, that's unsensible. What do you think, Gerald D. fanboy? Don't be ridiculous! In this modern world of Warcraft, it is not enough to simply kill a boss anymore. It must be done with panache, with style. Okay, what do you mean by that? Trick points! Trick points? Yes, we must learn lessons from previous raiding games such as SSX Snowboarding and Project Gotham 2. I see. So, what do you have in mind? Legitimate world first may now only be done upside down. Upside down? What, you mean the entire raid? Of course! That'll separate the real raiders from the fakers. Well, that makes some sort of sense, I suppose. What do you think of all this, Kungan? Kungan has been tanking upside down since Rage Firechasm. Kungan tanks all. Feed the Kungan. The Kungan hungers. No, Kungan, please. Kungan, will you please stop devouring the guests?
Kungan, sorry.
Yes, quite. Anyway, so, the boss must be killed while the raid is upside down. Everyone in favour? Yes, good. Let us continue. Mr. Fanboy, if you please. We know that the current raid limit for major boss encounters is 25 players. I propose that a true world first kill must only consist of 7.5 raiders, and at least 3 of these must be hunters. Whoa, hang on there. Since when did raiding guilds use hunters for anything? They must level new alts if they want a true world first kill. I'm sorry, did you say 7.5 raiders? Yes, I did. But how can you have half a raider? Kangan, if you please. Oh God, my legs! He's severing my legs! Oh God, the agony! See? Half a raider. Yes. Someone get some heavy rune cloth on him before he makes a mess of the carpet. But all of this is only enough for half a world first. Wouldn't half a world first be a world 0.5? Surely that would actually come before a world first. Does this mean that all previous world firsts never actually happened? Exactly! But let's not talk about that now. It has come to my attention that some of the lesser guilds have been using consumables to get ahead. A true raider must not do this. A true raider must in fact debuff himself. But how can we do this? Simple. Every attempt must be made with res sickness. Only then, after these criteria are fulfilled, may a world first be achieved. Yeah, that sounds pretty reasonable. Gungan, what do you make of all this? Gungan? Is that a paladin you're wielding? Gungan heard about pally tanking. Gungan thought he'd try it. Gungan tanks all. Gungan, I don't think that's what they meant by pally tanking. My God! Stop hitting me! Good God, why? Puny mortal, you are not hardcore enough. Live inside your character. Live! And so the conclusion, not a single world first has ever actually happened, which means, guys, everything's up for grabs. So go get raiding. Van Cleef awaits. This has been Nopecake News. Good night.